Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to discuss about all the available methods in init function in a presentation model. Now I have chosen this form applet here and I have written some code for all the available methods. These are the available methods in init function. You can see add property, add method, attach event handler, attach notification handler, attach pre-proxy execute binding, attach post-proxy execute binding. I don't have an example for attach property set handler, attach PS handler method, but uh, we can use that method also. So let's take an example here. In my previous videos, I have already discussed about this dot add property and this dot add method with an example. So add property adds a property where you can store any state of the applet presentation model. For example, for an applet, we have a list of properties that are predefined that are available by vanilla. Like if the applet is in query mode, there is a property to check it is in query mode. So we can add extra custom properties to the PM and we can set those property values by using this dot set property function. This dot add method is similar to browser scripts pre-invoke method. Before your method actually hits the server, we can override anything in this function. I've given an example of overriding the invoke method, and I'm overriding it with the function. Now we can add extra methods, anything like this, like instead of overriding the invoke method, we can add uh, say a custom method here, and that custom method can be called from a PM or PR, any other PM PR files. So you can add more methods and define those method logic inside. We have attach event handler function. This goes in hand with on control event function. If there is a control in the UI where on blur of the control or on click, on double click of the function, you want to do some business logic, you have to write the on control event function in the presentation renderer, sorry, physical renderer, and here you have to bind it in the PM using this. So I'll give you an example in my future videos about attach event handler. Attach notification handler. Uh, when some action happens in the UI, the UI components communicate with the server, and the server sends back some response, sends some notifications back to the UI so that the UI will be rebuilt. For example, if I deleted a record, the record will get deleted in the backend in the business layer, but that delete should reflect in the UI so that current work set, the current record set will be removed from the UI property set. So for that, the server sends back a notification like this for a delete record. So all the events, all the notifications from the server to the uh, browser will be handled in this method. We have attach pre-proxy execute binding method. So when some action happens in the applet, when some method is invoked in the applet, it the UI browser will send the request to the server. The server processes it and sends back the response. So once the Siebel server receives the response. The Siebel OpenUI receives the response. It calls the pre-proxy execute binding, and once it receives the response and it processes the response, it will call the post proxy execute binding. Now we'll discuss more in detail of these two methods, why they are different, in what sense, what is pre and what is post. So these functions, these methods that you see here, do the building of the UI. For example, I'm already in an applet. Once I click on query here, the applet vanilla PMPR files will run some business logic so that it sets the applet in the query mode. Once I click this, the PM will set is in query mode property to true, and once that is set to true, the PR will build the UI in query mode. And once the query is executed, once we get the response from the server, the UI will get built. So for all the actions, these methods will get called for individual individual actions, and they will build the UI as and when required. I'm in a list applet. Once I click on delete record, this whole row in the UI should disappear. Every time Siebel server will not do a query from the server. It stores everything in the UI in a property set, and from that property set, the record will should get deleted. For that, we'll use the handler, notification handler. So um, let me give you an example. I have written one dummy file here and added the PM to this applet. Now the status of this account is prospect. I'm going to set it to active, and I'm going to save the record. Once the uh, invoke method is called, it will call this add method invoke, and it will go to the pre-invoke function. So here I can say return false. I can cancel operation here, or I can add an alert. I can add a prompt here, so that you are setting the field value to active or something. So we can override this. This is quite similar to pre-invoke method in the browser scripts. So this will get invoked first, then it will go to pre-proxy execute binding. It will run the pre-proxy binding function, and then to post proxy. And I want to show you example here. So I'm setting it back from active to prospect again. So in UI you see the status to prospect, but the server didn't process it yet. So in pre-invoke, if I try to capture the value of the field, you'll still see active. Even in UI, if it is showing prospect, it is not committed to the server and it is still active. But once the proxy method is called, once we go into the pre-proxy or post proxy, by that time the record will be saved, and you can see the field value is different. It's prospect now. So add method, using add method we can write custom functions like custom method functions. We can extend anything, and we can call these functions in a PR using pm.execute method xyz something. So I can just say this dot add method test, and in the PR, when we do some action, we can say uh, pm dot execute method xyz or test, then this particular function will get called and it'll run the logic as and when required. So all these methods will help us um, in building the UI according to the business logic, and we can extend the functions. We can write more code to make the UI much more intuitive, much more user friendly. For example, I get an error in the server on write record or something saying for example, account class is a required field. I get an error in the server, it prompts me the error. Once the error is prompted, I can capture the error from the prompt and write some logic and show a tooltip or something at the end of the account class saying this is a required field. So these kinds of UI requirements can be handled by using the PM functions. So I think this video will help you understand more on uh, what methods are available and how to extend them. Thank you.